Well, the appeal of this movie, you know, goes back to my children's childhoods, because they would ask for these things on their birthdays, and I would get them Transformer toys, and then we would play on the floor. And I remember my own experience with Transformer toys, how much fun it was for me. And so this was a shared experience.
Transformers really gets its start in Japan with Takara, and it was a series of robot toys that transformed, and that's all they really were.
A couple of Hasbro executives went to Japan and saw this great idea and thought that there was something there, and decided that this would be a really cool concept if we could wrap a story around it.
In Japan, there was no good guy, bad guy. They didn't have home planet. They didn't have personalities or stories. So that came from those meetings in Hasbro, and the characters that are weapons or gear, let's make them the bad guys. All the rolling characters, let's make them the good guys. The name Autobots, Decepticons, came out of that. After that, we started with the animation company.
Transformers came out in '84. We weren't quite into girls yet, I don't think. So it was get home from school, Transformers, glass of milk, brownie, whatever, you know, your snack. I don't know what your snack was or what you were allowed to
Not a glass of milk and a brownie.
But we saw it right when it came out.
Many millions of years ago, on the planet Cybertron, life existed. But not life as we know it today. Intelligent robots that could think and feel inhabited the cities. They were called Autobots and Decepticons.
At the time, there had been new legislation that kind of opened up toy-related animation.
Decepticon rule forever!
So it was one of the first shows that what you saw as a toy was in the show.
The Transformers, robots in disguise.
Transformers has a passionate fan base.
Who's the biggest Transformer fan?
Me.
Transformers, more than meets the eye.
A lot of people remember Transformers from the '80s, which is when it was in its heyday, but it's actually been around ever since. And since 1984, Transformers has generated over $3 billion in retail sales, and that's, you know, one of the top franchises in history.
I have more than 1,000 Transformers at my house, fan since I was a kid.
I think it's just the mythos. I think that's what really got me into it after I was a kid watching the cartoon. Strong characters and just a very cool toy line to support it.
I'm a pretty big fan. I got my first toy when I was 2 years old, the first Transformer toy. I still have it.
About 75% of all adult men had a major Transformers experience in their lives, and that's true almost the world over. So you've got this great group of people who all grew up with the brand, are now working on the creation of Transformers the movie.
If it meant something to you as a kid and you had an emotional response to it, that's valuable and that needs to be heard, period. So we kind of come at it from that place.
I was a fan. I mean, from my childhood was Yogi Bear and the Transformers movie.
It's over, Prime.
Was I die hard, like G1 all the way and like these people on Ain't It Cool News? No. Do I have a Transformers tattoo on my body somewhere? Probably not. Was I a fan? Extremely.
I did a lot of research and a lot of studying on it in the past year and a half. So that would make me definitely a Transformer head geek somehow.
From the very beginning, we knew we had fans following this. From the first time that a piece of art got out to the fact that Michael Bay's computer was hacked and the script got up online.
So I must say, so in fear of one of you guys stealing my computer to find out the real robot names, I decided that it'd be better to tell you this week or next week the true names, okay? Because I like my computer's got a lot of other secret on it as well. You could keep nothing secret on this movie. And the design started getting out on the internet. And people were saying, oh, Michael Bay, you wrecked my childhood. Damn you, Michael Bay.
Like most Transformers fans, when I first saw the designs of the movie, I was like, what? They changed everything. It's completely different. What's going on here?
I think a lot of fans hated me for it at first. After I read some of the posts that said they wanted to protest out of my office, they actually picked the wrong office because I moved. They didn't know my real address. So, and then the few little talkbacks where they said they want to hunt me down and kill me, I had a couple of those. But generally, I would take some of the constructive criticism and stuff they saw. I actually changed Megatron's face when they opposed it that much. It was very important to get our teaser out there that was like more of a badass teaser to show that it's real, not a cartoon. That teaser on Yahoo was the most downloaded teaser ever. That's crazy. So all of a sudden they see the headpiece. And they're like, oh, wow, uh-oh. Okay, that's starting to look really cool. You have to totally respect what's been created, and you can't, deviate. And I knew if I were to put these characters in the real world, they'd have to fit in the real world, and they have to be much more intricate.
We had kind of come to terms with the fact that we kind of respectfully acknowledged what had come before, but, there's a lot of logic that I had a problem with.
On Cybertron, I mean, they all walked around like with truck parts, transformed, and that just doesn't fly when you're trying to at least make it credible for someone who's never seen Transformers. So on Cybertron, they have to have, I created all of them having this endoskeleton, this underskin.
They're a technology that is beyond our understanding based on kind of a nanomolecular process. Each molecule, each cell is a machine unto itself.
So when they come to Earth, they come in these weird, like, pods. It's the endoskeleton wrapped up. They land, they unfurl.
And the notion is that when they arrive here, in order to truly just to exist on this planet in disguise, that they have the capacity to basically find a vehicle and replicate that vehicle based on their mass.
Alex and I decided we were going to try to avoid mass shifting, as we call it in the fandom. When Optimus Prime transforms from a truck into a robot, you want it to feel like it's the same size truck as going into that same size robot, and that there's no cheating going on.
Hasbro helped us select some of the robots.
And clearly we wanted that core cast of characters that people had known and loved. And that's why we kept talking about it as a G1-inspired story.
G1 is a fan term for Generation 1. So when people think back fondly on the 80s, nostalgia, Gen 1 is what comes to mind.
The characters that we knew had to be in the movie, without a doubt, were on the Autobot side, Optimus, Bumblebee, Jazz, and Ironhide. And on the Decepticon side, it had to be Megatron, Starscream.
And we knew we had to have someone kind of related to Soundwave. Frenzy's in there as kind of a representative of that.
I actually wanted more robots than we had, but it just ultimately got too expensive.
Actually, a few characters that we had contemplated that we designed product for.
We have a character here, RC, who's one of the only female robots in the Transformers lore. And she actually almost made it into the movie, but for some reason, they couldn't quite get the plot line correct, so maybe we'll see her in future movies to come.
Hasbro wanted to see what we came up with. They kind of left us completely alone for a long time.
They were really kind of, let me do my thing, and where I veered off, like with Optimus, we had to make the ears just a little bit bigger to get a little more of the samurai look.
If you think about where Transformers came from, the robot culture of Japan is in part based on the tradition of samurai armor.
We had some serious, Transformer, just total head geeks that have been, know the lore backwards and forwards, that we would vet this stuff through.
Early on that the art department was working on for Optimus, you can see that he was a lot more blue, and even the vehicle parts were kind of disappearing. Particularly the tires were uncoiling, and those are just things that were going to become issues for us to make product of. One of the things that Transformers is not is morphing. They are transforming, so pieces have to go somewhere. On the product side, with real plastic, my team has physics to contend with. That did present kind of a design challenge that we threw back to the production team, and they realized that, and I think we got to a happy place for everybody.
Autobots, transform. Roll out.
Peter Cullen did the original voice, and still has a great voice. And then this one, give it a little bit more of a, the easy Ironhide. You know what I mean?
When Peter Cullen was announced as the voice of Optimus, I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was awesome, and I thought it was the most unexpected little nod to the fans, and I think it showed a respect for that, for how much that voice defined the character.
They deserve to choose for themselves. Then you will die with them.
When I was looking at faces, I said, I want Megatron to have an attitude like a Hugo Weaving.
You still fight for the weak.
Frank Welker, I kept putting his voice, the cartoon voice, to our gigantic Megatron, and it just didn't fit.
You fool, Starscream. You fool, Starscream. You fail me yet again, Starscream.
Okay. Thanks a lot. You did a great job. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate you doing it. It was a pleasure. Enjoy yourself. Thank you.
The life-scale Bumblebee was only meant to be just kind of a see it for pieces, you know? It really can't hold up to the detail of going up close.
What they'll do is they make that robot in the computer. Then they give us that computer file, and we'll make that part.
This piece is called the Bumblebee. It supposedly transforms from a 2008 Camaro into this robot here. And how it's going to do that, I have no idea.
There's 150 single parts on that robot. The whole robot was sculptured out of foam. We took molds off of them, made fiberglass parts, and when it stands up, it's actually about 18 feet tall.
That's too far, huh?
Too far? So we'll put this away. Here we go.
We need to make a yoke in there with a glitcher probably hold that.
This thing cost $75,000 to paint. It required a special 4-layer paint because it matches the car.
Me and Bumblebee are starting to get to be real close.
When we got near the robot, it was just like, no way. And you start walking, you're getting closer and closer, and you start seeing the body and the torso and the head, and it's just nuts. It was nuts. Silence.
The robot can't move on camera, but we can position it in any position that Michael needs it. And so it's a really good guide for them.
I'm operating the Bumblebee airbags for movement. Hey, camera! Marker! Be mark? Action!
No. My favorite Transformer is Bumblebee.
It's always been Bumblebee.
My favorite Transformer now, I think, is Starscream.
Megatron is dead. The humans have taken it.
I think Ironhide is probably my favorite.
Stand back. You feeling lucky?
I like Optimus Prime.
This is Optimus Prime here, baby.
Good-looking truck. As a kid growing up, I was very into fixing my own cars and taking them apart. And so from cars and just being an automotive head, Transformers, it kind of struck me as something fun to work on.
Watch out, get out of the way, I'm rolling cameras. Ready, and IMO guy, go. Ready, and send him, Kenny.
Michael Bay does know his cars. He's pretty particular about the cars he wants. He knows a lot more about cars than I do.
Not too fast.
We started last September, October, having meetings with Michael, trying to figure out what the Autobots would be, what vehicles we would use. And we downloaded every picture of every car that was available.
We started kind of addressing the major car companies.
Listen, when you're making a movie for $145 million, sounds like a lot of money, it was tough to fit this movie in that box.
And you couldn't afford to do this movie without a sponsorship, and nobody could come up with what GM has. For us, it is about, the sexiness of their cars.
I went to GM and I got into their Skunk Works there. It's a place, I can't tell you where it is, but that's where they make their stealthy concept cars. But I saw this car. They didn't know what kind of car it was going to be, but now it's the Camaro. And what I liked about it, it kind of had a retro look. It was a muscle car, and I just, right then and there, I knew it was Bumblebee.
Bumblebee was, in the 80s, a Volkswagen Bug. And his role has always been kind of the younger of the Autobots.
We knew that he was originally a Volkswagen and a Beetle, but it was not really an option for Michael because it wasn't badass enough.
I just was never going to use the Volkswagen Bug for Bumblebee. It just wasn't going to be in my cars. It just reminded me of Herbie the Love Bug.
But we do make nod to it in the movie because if you notice on the parking lot, the Camaro is actually parked next to a Bug.
This is a classic engine right here. I sold a car the other day.
Oh my God.
Gee.
Bumblebee, we said, you know, as long as he's yellow, let's find some cues that will harken back to what people remember, but let's not have that be as far as you can go.
I think the Camaro, the old Camaro, is really cool, and you know, it's a nice beater car.
The quintessential Camaro is a '69. You know, everybody's been a million of them hot rodded, and so I kind of wanted to find that, you know, like the cheesiest version of the Camaro that'd be perfect for this kid's first car. If he didn't have any money, he would never go out and be able to afford a '69.
This is a Camaro, 1977 Camaro. Nobody wanted them, nobody needs them, they're hard to find. This one was pulled out of Palmdale, the other two were pulled out of Oklahoma. We're gonna redo them, repaint them, new engines, everything redone so that Kenny Bates can drive the heck out of them for his stunts.
So this was kind of like, you know, the perfect dichotomy for the new Camaro when he rescans.
Why does he transform back into this piece of crap Camaro?
That Camaro is really spectacular. I wish they were bringing it out earlier than they are.
There were only 2 Camaros that were hand-built by GM. To fix that car is a big deal. If you smash a fender, you just don't get another Bumblebee fender because there aren't any. All the parts were individually made. It's a 3-stage paint. If you get a ding in the door, you have to paint the whole door.
That was a pretty trick door latch. No indent, no recessed area. Everything's slick.
I mean, it's a $500,000 car. So it's not like, hey, go have, you know, go around the you know, it doesn't happen like that. There's wipe your feet off before you get into the car, keep your hands on the steering wheel, you know, push down at a certain rate. You want me to go faster? I'm just nervous about the car. I can go faster if you want. Just I'm having to keep my...
Don't go faster, just go a little more center. You are not a stunt driver, okay?
This is where we were parked, originally.
You can say everything you want.
Michael, oh my goodness gracious!
Let's go, come on.
All right, right here in the center. If I crash into the wall, it's not my fault, you know, because I'm an actor.
But it should be like this, the transformation. 1, 2, 3. Okay? Hey, guys. Max, Jake. You're transforming on 3. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Okay? Ready?
I mean, Jazz is a character that was always a sports car.
Now he's not a Porsche 911 anymore. He's a Pontiac Solstice, but he's still a cool sport car.
We had a little company do some aftermarket. We made a hard top for it. We put the little ground effects fairings, we put a little spoiler on the back and some louvers on the hood, and we kind of just jazzed it up a little bit.
Ratchet in the 80s was an ambulance, but it was more of a van-shaped ambulance. It was more of a Japanese version of what an ambulance is.
Ratchet was the kind of H2-based ambulance, which doesn't exist, that we kind of designed and built from scratch.
We started with a stock GM H2 Hummer, and which we gutted and took all of the existing components from the rear apart, and then we're building the cages that will be sheeted to look as the search and rescue vehicle should. Also applying all of the roll bars, roll cages, the heavy duty bumpers to give it that beefy look, wheel and tire packages. And the accessories that will, fall in line with the search and rescue vehicle.
Ironhide was this big, 4500 series GMC.
They're brand new. They just came out, and they gave us 3 of them.
We got them from the factory black. I made that tailgate that had the Autobot logo embossed into it, added the stacks and all the running board, and modified the bumpers and stuff. I mean, that truck, unless you're standing next to it, you have no idea. It's like so big, it's crazy. It's like the biggest thing you ever saw.
There's Optimus.
I saw a picture of a truck, and it was lowered, and it was blue, and it had flames on it. And I'm like, that's Optimus Prime. With Optimus, literally, we got every car book, every car pictures. It was just all over the walls.
We looked at the cartoon. Thank you very much. And then we just started pulling reference of different big rigs. This is what we were always, everybody in this department was conceptualizing how Optimus is masked, what he came out of. This is the main dude.
We should go look at it.
We should go look at it.
Okay. Instead of buying a new truck that's a $150,000 truck, we bought some older trucks, and they were pretty beat up and they were pretty ugly looking.
Wow, this is like a redo. You know what I mean, Ian? Yeah. How are they ever going to make this thing look like that?
I said, just trust me, this is the truck that it should be Optimus Prime, not a new truck. This is the one. So we're gonna completely strip it, paint it, flame job, new fenders, new sleeper, new bumpers, lights, yada, yada, yada. And when it comes out, it'll be beautiful.
There's been some debate about some of the changes that were made. The flames on the side of the car and the fact that it's a long nose instead of a flat nose truck.
I like the flames. And what the flames did when he was transformed, it kind of looked like ribs, and it just, to me, it looked cool.
One of the things I've learned is red doesn't photograph well for the feature films. The light being what it is, and it's a nightmare. Michael Bay was nice enough to explain that to me. So we made this compromise where we wanted a red chest, and we did that by the flames, so that we could still retain the essence of Optimus being a red truck while, still making it easy to shoot.
Just a much more aggressive looking truck. It's like more dual, more homage to Steven. Looks better on a wide angle when it extends back, It's just a much more badass looking thing than a flat fronted, trash truck.
And again, it goes back to that thing of when you actually see it and you see what's required of the transformations and the level of detail, we weren't going to be able to have as exciting a transformation with the flat nose.
Okay, guys, come on. Let's stop admiring the truck. Let's shoot, shall we? This is a truck that I sold on eBay as soon as I'm done with it. Let's set up for this, please. Back to one, Joey.
This movie, I had more cooperation from GM than any movie I've ever made.
They promised us they'd give us the flood damaged cars, the non-saleable cars, the cars that Michael Bay needs to wreck every day on a daily basis for his food chain. We burned, crashed, flipped. Probably close to 200 cars.
Yes, we're gonna try. I'm gonna try and go to the
We had like 30 or 40 cars sent to the shop and stripped the engines and transmissions out and put the pick points on them and the plates on them for us to flip and throw. And we do that all on the day, wherever X marks the spot.
We have this catapult, and then we just run a cable out, hook it up to the car, and then we, with the use of high-pressure nitrogen, we can fire. It's the same way a plane is launched from an aircraft carrier. We do this exact same thing, only on a smaller scale. And it's all like portable. And we'll take that anywhere on the set Michael wants to go, and we'll launch cars.
Screaming everywhere, screaming. Ready, on, roll camera. Ready, on, 3, 2, 1, action!
When is that building?
Get out of the building, folks! Don't get in the building! Fred, hey, Rich, come in there. Look up there, please. Fred, that's it, hit the lockup. Thank you very much. Guys, walk away, please, film crew. Thank you.
No one does car chases better than Michael. I mean, they're incredible. Like, they're at Mach 3, and, you feel like you're right in the middle of them.
One of my shooting styles is using this little go-kart thing, where it goes very fast, like 100 miles an hour, and it's a very small vibrating camera that's real low to the ground and looks like a suicide vehicle.
And we use that for anything from running down the street to chasing cars. It's a very powerful tool for getting in and around and close to the action. We use it quite a bit.
Fun, huh? So good. All right, let's not clip it now. Let's not clip the setter.
Thank you.
Let me play that back again.
It's pretty crazy being in the go-kart. I mean, because you're responding quick, and any mistake and you could be in a lot of trouble.
Tell you, I'm never going to be doing another highway chase again because I've now done highway chases till the cows come home.
I wanted to transform right under the on-ramp, all right? So the next on-ramp is where we're going to start the transformation. Okay.
The highway chase is huge. I mean, we have tumbling cars, we have crashing cars, we've got cars upside down hitting cars, we've got scraping cars.
But this one will top most of the ones I've ever done because now you've got robots transforming at 80 miles an hour on a freeway. And I don't know how you can top anything like that now.
All right, let's go try one, shall we?
Yeah.
We try to put the audience inside the action. So they're actually eating cars, they're actually in the crash.
Come on, let's go. Baybuster, follow me. Watch out, watch out.
We use the Baybuster, that crazy triangle car that can actually take direct hits from cars.
The Baybuster is a pickup truck with a cage on the outside of it, and they mount anywhere from 2 to 4 cameras on the front. And if we have flipping cars or cars being thrown off the top of car carriers, I mean, we normally drive the Baybuster right into it. It's great for the audience. That's part of that eat the action that the audience gets to see that's not CGI.
It's like most directors would have chose when we ripped that bus, which is an extremely dangerous stunt. I mean, really dangerous. Most would have just done it either miniature or CG. And it just wouldn't look as good.
I mean, the bus sequence is something that we've never done before, and I really had to push to get that to happen.
That bus we have 6 exploding bolts holding the cab together in the center of the bus. And then we have big cables underneath pulling it together, holding it together. We cut the cables and blow the bolts, and the actual bus cracks in half like an egg in two pieces. There's a stunt driver and drives the front away because it's going to drop down on another set of wheels so he can still control it. And then the back half has those same cannons in it that we're going to fire at 1,100 PSI, 3 cannons, and the back half of the bus is going to flip away. Wow, it's going to be really cool.
We're gonna pop the cable, which is the first cable pulling it. Then there's another cable wrapped around him, and it's gonna take about 3 seconds for that bus to pull like that, and then we blow the thing. Once we pop the cable, it's all automatic. Richard, you have the bomb in your hand?
Yeah,
I have a button on the floor, yes.
Okay, so Richard...
He wants to be there. Releasing the first cable when the bus comes out from under the bridge and gets into the sun.
Come on, we're gonna make this an epic.
Come on, guys, let's shoot this. Let's go. F this. Let's go. Come on.
Copy that. Yes, let's go.
Come on, guys. Someone get in this charge vehicle and have it started, because we're moving in position right now. Move those cars forward, Kenny Bates.
So we put Richard Epper in the bus, and I drove the Bay Bomber and chased it with 4 cameras on the front end. But no one really knew what the bus was going to do.
All right, guys.
Kenny, how'd it go, man?
It went pretty good. You said it cut in half, right, Mitch?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, half the bus here and half of it's over there.
I think it worked out really well. And I think it's because effects did an excellent job on prepping that bus for us. So it's like those guys are the guys that made us look good on that one.
The main thing is my good friend Richard Epper is safe, and that's all I think about going down there. In the end, it's just a movie, but it's a Michael Bay movie, and that's what we do. You get the bang for the buck when you're with Michael.
Yeah, actually, no one was hurt on this movie. I mean, we've had a really spotless track record for such a long time, and you know, knock on wood, because it's by the way, it's just a dangerous business. What we do, what they're doing, is dangerous.
Which one of those do you think was a Decepticon? Maybe one, maybe none.
Decepticons are actually very fun, because they're just wicked.
It seemed to serve the story better to have military vehicles being the real theme of the Decepticons, as opposed to too many tape decks or a gun or things that were clever and great in the cartoon, but a little bit unfocused for our purposes.
Michael has a pretty good relationship with DOD, and so it's kind of interesting that we're using all the military in this movie in the robot form are bad guys.
I'll be honest, I had to sort of pitch this to my chain of command in that there's Air Force aircraft as bad guys.
All right, ready? And the first two, go.
Because of Michael's relationships in the past and, you know, Armageddon and other films he's done, the thought was that Dealey would get the help of the armed forces in the end.
You see, the Air Force cameraman, I keep trying to tell him, turn, let me show you. I'm trying to change the style. See, he's a little rigid. Everything's like this. He looks like that, walks like that. It's rigid. Oh, look, oh, now he's got a little MTV style going. See? By lunch, he's got a little MTV style going.
He loves the military. He knows how to portray the military to make us look good, and so it seemed like a win-win. And people love bad guys. The fact is, I mean, what's cooler than Darth Vader?
I've always been like some of the first to shoot military hardware. In Armageddon, I was the first to shoot the B-2 bomber. Then this movie was the F-22s, which are the new $130 million amazing stealth fighters.
Starscream was an F-15 Air Force jet back in the early cartoon days. And back then, the F-15 in the 80s was the quickest and the fastest and the baddest thing around. Well, fast forward 25 years, the F-22 is now that aircraft.
Rolling. And roll cameras. Roll cameras. Ready and action. There we go. Look at that. All right, let's do that again. Reset. Very good work, everybody. Reset. Let's do that one more time.
What the Air Force has done in this show is shown us all of the good toys. Brandy new stuff that really hasn't even been put into the field yet.
Is there any hand signals that the crew guys in the front give? Anything you give at all? Any hand signals? All right, I want to do some hand signals. We're going to come right by you. Guys, go back to the crew. What kind of signals do you guys give?
That aircraft is just phenomenal what it can do. There's war games they play where they'll send, 3 or 4 of those things out against 20 or so current F-15, F-16s, and it's not even a contest.
Target ID.
They can fire on enemies that are beyond the curvature of the Earth. They can track and fire on things that are 270 miles away. So those guys are dead before they're even within visual contact of that plane.
So it's just very fitting that Starscream, who's the air commander and second in command, takes that form of literally the baddest weapon system in the world right now.
We have Blackout, which is a MH-53 helicopter. It's a gigantic troop transport, mean-looking helicopter.
Just looks badass, like the Cobras are kind of slight, yeah, they carry a lot of firepower, but as far as just looking big and menacing, the Sea Stallion was like the logical choice.
Yeah, I got my fire suit on, baby. I'm directing.
Ready, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4.
I can't think of anything remotely this huge that the Air Force has been involved with, not only in screen time, but just the amount of aircraft and people and shooting on bases and everything that we've done.
What we're going to want to do is we want to stack you guys up. So with long lens, we'll make you look very close. You know what I'm saying? So we'll put you kind of like this to each other. Like a little bit over there and that a little bit. We're stacked up with the sun, okay? Coming over the tower. Like about 300. The tower is actually a good place to come.
Airbus, Osprey 17, do you want airplane mode or conversion mode on this?
Left. Correction, right. Right. To me. Come on. Right. To me. Right. Oh, yeah, baby.
Part of the Golden Glow.
Lower. Bring him down.
Send him away. Turn him around.
Bring him down. Another pass. Take it around.
All right, we don't know where you are,
Well, I was also the first to use the Ospreys, which are for extracting soldiers. It's kind of like a helicopter plane. It's like these gigantic helicopter blades. Looks very dangerous, if you ask me. And they actually rotate down and become gigantic propellers that angle forward and can go about 300-something miles an hour.
Come back, please. Awesome.
Warthogs were a very interesting kind of plane because it's kind of eerie, because they get very low and they're just got this whine to it.
Are they coming, Josh?
They are.
Okay, come higher up. Right now, guys.
And that's got a lethal cannon on it. It's a creepy plane. If you're on the ground, you don't want to be there if it's shooting at you. The military gave us The use of the Spooky, which is a C-130, specially equipped, like 18 guns, is a thing they use to shoot Taliban in Afghanistan. It's a vicious old plane, but it's very lethal.
The 49th Fighter Wing at Holloman is the home of the stealth fighter, the F-117 Nighthawk.
Well, they scrambled the stealth fighter, like 50 of them staged there, so we had them all rolling around, and it was crazy.
It's still a very sensitive aircraft. The technology that is involved with it's still very top secret.
I don't want you filming from that angle, please.
We had to just basically make sure that certain protocols were kept in mind, that you couldn't film it that way, you couldn't get close to it this way. And once again, the production bent over backwards to make sure that they followed all the rules.
Our tax dollars happily at work.
One of the things that a lot of people don't understand, that all military support is on a cost basis. This costs the taxpayer absolutely nothing.
The movie pays for any costs of the aircraft and personnel that cannot otherwise be used in training missions.
If a helicopter is flying and it costs X number of dollars per hour to fly that helicopter, production company reimburses it.
Technology that the government allowed us to be around and some of the tools they allowed us to use, you wouldn't be able to get anywhere else in the world.
These are target practice tanks. What they do is this one is a mock-up of a fake foreign tank. So the targeting systems can pick out friend and foe. When they shoot them in the missile test range.
At Holloman, they have what's known as a tank graveyard, and there's probably 1,000 tanks and self-propelled artillery pieces and stuff like that. And the first time I took Michael in there, he was like a kid at Christmas. It was like, can I have that? Can I have that? Can I burn that? Can I blow that up? You know, absolutely. Anything you want.
Which one do you like the least?
The least?
Yeah. Because
you want to burn it?
No, something a little more wicked. Anything?
No, it's all right.
Peace? Peace. Violence.
Yeah.
The tank was something that had already been modified by another show. Somebody owned it already, so we modified it and came up with a cool paint job that was cool, kind of non-radar detectable paint job that was based on some camo that we saw in this futuristic battleship image.
We found on the internet this minesweeper that the military uses. They send to Iraq, and it's very cool. It's called a Buffalo, but we call it Bone Crusher.
How fast does that Bone Crusher go, by the way? 50. It must take forever to get there, right?
The image that they used to promote this vehicle had this shot of this arm extended and this big multi-tined fork foreground in the shot. And we finally get the data on this machine. And it turns out that this fork is like 14 inches wide. And they totally cheated the whole thing in Photoshop. This giant thing coming at you, you know, that looks like it could lift up a bus, is like this big. We're like, what the? You know, so we basically made this appliance that goes over the existing one that more replicates the version of the machine that we had been reacting to.
Originally, the police car was an Autobot. It seems like, to keep with our theme of all the Decepticons seem to take on the disguises of authoritarian vehicles, military jet, tank, police car. It seemed like a good change. So barricades in there as a police car.
Slide the headlight forward and then bring the other arm over. Overtake the headlight. So the idea being to start
the light a little.
Barricade is a really fun character. He's wicked mean.
Okay, all right. Okay, stop. I'm sorry. Oh, God. Okay, all right. Okay, look. Stop.
One of the first thoughts we had, of course, was to include Soundwave in the Decepticons. And as in our first draft, we actually did have Soundwave. We started to realize that we were not really servicing that character in a way that was going to make us or fans happy. And so we said, rather than doing it wrong, let's actually create a character who is a distant cousin of Soundwave's. And that's how Frenzy was born.
Frenzy is a boombox that transforms into this wicked little 3-foot-tall, vicious-looking robot. This is something that I invented.
We did an animated Frenzy. We wanted to see, did facial studies on how his eye stalks moved and how his mouth moved and how his mask came out of this little boom box, you know, so we did some exploration with that.
We started with the computer design puppet, and we had to go back and retrofit and make those things that look mechanical in design actually be mechanical, and take it apart and kind of work backwards.
What they'll do with the full-size mechanical version of this is that when you bring it into the set under the lighting conditions, it's also going to help out with the CGI guys so they can see how an actual real item would react in that environment.
1, 2, 3.
Mostly it's something to interact with the actors because they would have to be fighting against nothing.
Quick, you gotta learn quick. It's from the Robot Spring Collection. It's real nice. It's a new scarf. DreamWorks bought me. I just put it on when I get cold outside. That's all that this is.
There's more where that came from.
Megatron was represented as a pistol, a very realistic-looking pistol that in Japan actually shot little pellets. That mechanism didn't work in the US, but that worked well for a villain in the 80s.
For us, we didn't want anyone shrinking, particularly the bad guy. We realized that for him to do that would be the equivalent of Darth Vader turning into his own lightsaber and having someone else swing him around.
It's a movie. You have to update. To keep it in the 80s, that'd be great for the 25 of you on the internet, you know? But for the world, it's like, you cannot have Megatron as a gun.
Join them in extinction!
Megatron transforms into kind of an alien plane.
Because he's the most arrogant and vain of the whole thing, and because he doesn't have to really hide. He's one of the only Decepticons who actually goes from his protoform right into his alien jet protoform.
What came up was just designing this kind of alien craft, which would hearken to what is happening on Cybertron. So this was a way to show how truly foreign these guys are.
I want these robots to look like they fit in the real world and look like it's photoreal right now.
The only thing that looks a little winky is that thing. It just looks like a...
Too thin?
Yeah, it just looks like surgery equipment.
All right, cool.
Okay, guys, that's about all the time. It's 12 o'clock. Time to go. Time to go. Time to go.
One more thing right here.
I got a lot more to do. You can't abuse me. You're abusing me. It's abusing my time.
That was the plan.
You're taking advantage. So in terms of our effects, we had Industrial Lights and Magic that were heading up Transformers, and we had Digital Domain, which is an effects company that I recently purchased. Both companies did the work for this movie.
It's a bad dream.
ILM did 3/4, and Digital Domain did the last quarter.
For us in the visual effects world, having giant robots to animate had a lot of really great potential, something to really look forward to.
They assembled a great team up there. I heard we were the show that everyone wanted to be on because there were just tons of Transformer geeks. So it was like a mob session to get onto this show.
I thought I was a huge fan, but some of the people I've met here since we got the project just, blow me away.
You know, compared to some people out there, my collection is nothing. There's people who have 10 times what I have. I'd estimate I have about 600 or 700, I think. Working on this movie has been this great full circle experience for me, going from playing with the toys as a kid to getting to be a part of the movie version.
Once we're awarded the job, we start developing what the robots really will look like. What are all the pieces going to look like? And we start having modelers here at our place start modeling those things, because it takes a good 4, 5, 6 months to build one robot.
Michael wanted a level of realism that required us to go much, much, much further with the complexity of the robots.
For instance, I've got a little transformer that's on my desk. He has 51 pieces in him. Our Optimus in the movie has 10,108 parts that all have to be handmade. It's in the computer, but it gives you some idea of the level of complexity.
They take photographs of real automotive parts and they kind of scale things in.
All the Decepticons and Autobots together were about 60,000 pieces that all had to move.
If the frame has 3 robots in it, it takes 38 hours to render 1 frame of film. Nowadays, I'm doing less and less storyboards, and animatics are just becoming a better tool.
It's basically a Saturday morning cartoon of the movie. From that, they'll show us what's going to happen.
You can work out some very complicated camera moves, especially when you're working with a height difference of 28 feet, 40 feet.
So you automatically start embracing ideas of animation and physics and trying to incorporate that in your little mini movies.
It's a different process of filmmaking. This is the first film with Michael Bay that I've actually worked on where the animatics carry as much weight as the script.
Watch out! Michael is a genius at making these movies, and he knows when it's going to be live, and he knows when it's going to be visual effects. He likes to split it up where it's partially visual and a lot of live action.
Action!
A lot of directors don't like to go that way because it's easier to go the visual effects route.
The great thing about Michael is he tries to get so much in camera.
5, 4, 3.
Because what we like to do is take our visual effects and really supplement what's possible to film. But the more real stuff that he has in each shot, the more believable it's going to be.
And ready in 3, 2, 1, jump.
The big challenge with Transformers is that we were working a lot with robots that weren't really there.
The robots got 15-foot-long feet, you know, and 8 feet wide. So you have these huge things that you have to tell the camera people about, tell the set people about. You can't have it that close. He's filling this whole volume.
You know, you try telling that to the guys when they arrive on set, and it's like, what?
At first, everybody kind of in shock. What? He's that big? But we had simple tools on set. We have our blueprint, the animatic. We have our cheat sheets, all the size of the robots.
They would bring these poles in, and everything else is acting and working around this pole that will soon be a robot.
We're literally using window washer poles to act with, you know, and it's a tough thing.
You gotta be in love with a pole. You know, that's been the stretch for me. It's a different form of acting.
Can you talk?
XM Satellite Radio, 130 digital channels of non-stop commercial-free music, news and entertainment.
So you talk through the radio then, right?
And a mighty voice will send a message summoning forth visitors from heaven.
We all became immediate fans of Shia LaBeouf because our robots are worth nothing if the actors don't interact with them properly.
Every day, all day long, my dialogue was with the A camera operator.
Okay, roll on them.
Go to profile.
And our dialogue is with Michael all the time. Let's plan this, and you work out what the move will be.
Yeah, you're right where Shia was.
You're backing up, and we're gonna go 3, 2, 1, you're going. And the thing is, like, you're backing up like this on the ground because you're seeing it kind of go up in front of you, all right?
It was a learning curve, I must say. They got much better at it.
The surprising thing with a crew is how quickly they learn. I'm trying to help them imagine the unimaginable. Pretty soon, everybody starts to believe that they're there.
And then you guys are gonna crawl back that way, because
You want to get out of the way.
yeah, you don't want to get squished.
Michael was very insistent about the robots being energetic and being able to do all these acrobatic stunts.
We wanted to have fighters and guys that could maneuver in ways that you'd never seen before.
We went into this development phase of
showing how agile we could make the robots and still convey a sense of weight. And we found that the closer things got to camera, the faster they could move. But when you see the entire robot at a further distance, we had to really slow things down to help sell their weight.
I used real stunt fighters. We do fight choreography. With Kenny's guys that were great fighters, different type of ninja type moves.
What we did was create a fighting style that represented the characters of each robot.
We would video these fights, not mocap, and it would help the animators get their kind of movements down and how we wanted to execute certain fighting scenes.
More than anyone, the animators are so involved in bringing these characters to life. And the nice thing is, you know, Michael is open to feedback.
I'd give them a lot of freedom. So what do you think? What do you think Optimus would do?
And they all know Transformers, you know, forward and backwards. And, you know, and you'll see things in the movie that reference, like, the old cartoon because they were such big fans of it.
Come on, Decepticon, punk! We've learned Earth's languages through the World Wide Web.
We had to get into Michael's head about who these characters were.
Believe it or not, it's very hard to animate any type of emotion from a robot if you don't have things that move.
Michael stressed to us how important it was to get the performance to read in the eyes. The majority of the performance is sold in the eyes.
The more we added, it just made it more real and felt like there's a soul in there.
My name is Optimus Prime. We are autonomous robotic organisms from the planet Cybertron.
We have a lot of transforming robots. I think originally we started with 15 transformations. We have over 40 now in the film.
In the original cartoon, you could have robots kind of transform midair and you really wouldn't care about laws of physics.
This was almost too easy.
Every single transformation in this movie is done as if these transformations were actually taking place in real space and in real time.
There's not too many people in the world that could have figured this out. You know, it takes a real genius to be able to disassemble these things and put them back together in a different shape.
Yeah, we didn't want to have metal actually change shape. We wanted to find a place for it on the vehicle and find a place for it that corresponded with the robot.
We would really play to camera, like have all the important pieces show up, move, rotate, and go back, while we were shuffling a bunch of cards behind the scenes.
In the Optimus transformation, this is the camera move, and what we would do on set is we would put a pole representing Optimus's height, and that's what we start with. The next thing we do is we match the camera move on the computer. So this is what Optimus would look like if he were just standing in the shot on the ground. So this is the transformation take. So it's all happening right in front of camera, in front of the audience's eyes. And you can see the detail. We go to the final rendered take. You know, there's cast car parts, there's engine pieces, there's gears, there's the headlights, the trailer hitch, its tires. They could do whatever they wanted to each individual part.
Friends of mine that are not in this business are always kind of nonplussed when I tell them that we have to, in a computer, completely recreate every single situation that we're shooting in. What that means is our match mover, he's got to be able to come back here and completely reconstruct that in the computer because the computer doesn't know where anything is.
We have spatial marks out on this area, and then Duncan, of course, measures each one later on. We know exactly where these spots were because we have to rebuild it wherever he makes contact with either the ground or the objects around it.
So when you see these guys stand on things and sit on things and bang against things, even the buildings that are, 10 stories tall all have to be mapped and measured on set.
There's a lot involved in making these vehicles and robots look real. We would go out and take pictures of the tire tread. The treads on our Optimus are the same as the treads on the real truck, and the detail down to the smallest bolt or the engine block, all that stuff. We were very meticulous. You want to see a car driving down the road and see it transform and watch it and say, well, those are real car parts. And to me, that's always the most fun and most challenging thing is, can we make this stuff look real?
We did huge packages of like texture reference and abrasion reference for even the robots internally, because we didn't want them to be so squeaky clean that they were uninteresting.
So on his hand, the surface was perfectly smooth, and then
We add in these scratches and nicks and dings. The hardest part about this film is we don't have real robots, we have real cars. And the real cars, they're buffing.
You look at a real car that's just been washed and polished and shined up, and it almost looks like a CG car.
So the hard part was trying to find a balance of dirt and aging to add to the robots that didn't make it look implausible that they could have come from this very clean car.
So all the car paints have multiple layers. They have a colorful layer, which is right here. You see yellow reflections in here, but there's also a clear coat on top of it, which is supposed to protect it, but it also gives you a really white reflection. So you always see a colorful reflection next to a white reflection.
Probably 2 years ago, we couldn't do this movie because of lighting and ray tracing, which is a way you light things.
We spend a lot of time getting the lighting right. It's very complicated to get all the specularity.
Because I'm a lighting buff, you know, and especially shooting so many car commercials. I would give dissertations at ILM of like, okay, if you see a car, it's gonna have a hot spot, it's got flat here, it's got more hot spots, it's got a long highlight there, and it's very confusing when you look at it. It's not like just one soft light on the car. So they had to really invent how to light these things so complicated to make them look like they're moving, and it's like reflecting car parts in a real world.
And so we're always trying to add that in, and we're trying to give that sort of look to our robots, and adding glints in what he calls pings, you know, where you highlight certain areas.
These tiny little lights that are being reflected in the surfaces is what he's after. That was so interesting for us that I think most of us lighting people became road hazards because we're driving around looking at other cars.
The robots are shiny. They have glass, they have metal, they have painted surfaces. The entire environment has to reflect. So every single shot has an environment recorded for it that gets now projected onto the robot. Otherwise, it will look phony baloney.
We apply everything that we've gathered from set, which is really high-resolution environments, and everything is being reflected in the car panels. And obviously, these robots are moving around a lot, so we're getting a lot of reflective play on the surfaces. And there are major light sources in here, from the headlights, there's the overhead balloon, there are the eyeballs in there, which have to be glowy, the blinking lights. We have the blinker right here, and then the face and his mouth talking is being reflected in the hood of the car. And that is what really sells it at the end. That's sort of the icing on the cake for us.
Our job and our task to create the illusion that everything was just shot on the same day, and that, you know, these robots who aren't even real were there.
ILM is known for its really fabulous level of compositing. And these guys just look at the shot as artists all day long, judging whether or not that thing looks like it's really in there.
We start with a background plate, obviously, that's shot in production, and then we take computer-generated elements and we add them to the shot.
Michael is the type of guy that wants to shoot things messy, which I love, because you shoot the explosions or all the debris or anything on set. It makes it harder for us, but it's real. So let's say the bomb goes off next to the robot. We have to model the robot, but then we have to pull out that debris out of the plate and put him in there behind it, because he's got to fit into the background, but behind that debris that might be gone.
It's very much a process for the compositor to get in there and make everything feel real again.
And that's what those guys do. They attack the shot and take it to the point where it's finished.
We shot a plate of the real helicopter, but in this case, it ended up being easier just to remove that helicopter. This is what the background plate was. We essentially removed the real helicopter and then replaced it with our own. So here, the compositor has actually added in the helicopter, layered the soldiers back over the top, added in some bullet hits for when the soldiers actually fire and hit blackout, and then enhanced muzzle flashes in some cases to try to just bring out the visual excitement of the scene. And then in the background here, where we had, you know, previously a blank tarmac, we've added more soldiers and just more firing as a texture of excitement, just to make it look like they're hitting them sort of with everything they've got.
My God.
Everyone is just amazed at what they've done with the robots in terms of just how real it looks, how complicated it is.
When you finally achieve a look where it really looks real, That's it. That's the biggest excitement of the day.
There are definitely days when we go in and we review the shots and one comes up and you just say, whoa, you know, that's incredible. Like, it looks like a real Transformer.
That takes a high degree of artistry and technical support to make these things look that way.